All right, all right. You're joining me on the maiden broadcast of the Big Dog's Brain podcast. And this podcast is basically going to be dedicated towards education on things like history, politics. We're going to talk about a lot of other things too. We'll talk about things that interest me because that's really the point of this podcast. I'm doing it because I want to get my voice out there. I think there's just so many things going on in the world right now and in our country that need to be exposed and need to be talked about. So that's really kind of the point of this podcast is we're going to just talk about those kinds of things. We're going to talk about things that interest me. Most of it's going to be history, politics, culture. We'll wander a little bit into some other areas too. We'll talk about probably sports. We'll talk about maybe movies, music, bourbon, cigars. Who knows what we'll talk about. But mostly we'll be focused on talking about how destructive MAGA has become towards our country, towards the Republican Party, towards the church in America. It's just become an extremely destructive force, and we're going to break that down. We're going to talk a lot about it. We're going to expose as much of it as we can. We're going to go deep into things like the Constitution. We're going to go deep into our history of our founding and what the founders really believed and what the founders said and thought. And so I hope you'll join me on this journey. We're just going to talk about a lot of different things like that and see where it leads us. And I want to answer a few questions in this first broadcast. Mainly, I want to talk about who am I? Why are we doing this? And what kinds of things are we hoping to accomplish? Who am I? I'm a former political science and history educator. Been extremely interested in politics my entire life. When I was a young child, 8, 9 years old, I was actually going door to door, handing out campaign literature for Ronald Reagan and his race against Jimmy Carter. So I've been, deeply interested in politics for almost my entire life. Got into Republican politics as a young man. The only major party candidate that I ever voted for in a presidential election until this year was George H.W. Bush. And back in his race against Michael Dukakis in 1992, that was my first election I was allowed to vote in. And I couldn't wait to voted for George H.W. Bush. I kind of regretted it. And we'll go into that a little bit too. But there's so I've been involved in politics for a long time. As a young man, I was elected to some small local offices and kind of got to see firsthand the ins and outs, the problems with major party politics. Became pretty disenchanted with politics from a major party perspective at a pretty young age. And so I've been an independent almost my entire life. Voted mostly for Republicans, some Democrats, lots of independents. That's changed since MAGA has taken over the Republican Party. I don't even like to call it the Republican Party anymore. It's not very Republican. It's not very conservative. It's full on MAGA. It's full on authoritarian, which is really kind of the opposite of what the Republican Party and conservatism was supposed to stand for. So we're going to be talking a lot about that in the coming weeks. We'll focus a lot about things that are in the news, and we'll just kind of try to break things down a little bit. I hope that you will follow our podcast. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of those fun places under Big Dog's Brain. If you look that up, I'm sure you'll find it in most of those social media sources. And so what are we hoping to accomplish with this podcast? Well, I hope that we can accomplish the truth. That's really the focus of our podcast is going to be the pursuit of truth. That's been so left behind in our two-party politics. It's all about winning. It's all about owning the other side. It's all about doing whatever it takes for our side to win. And truth has kind of become a casualty in that war. And so we're gonna focus on truth on these podcasts. We're gonna focus on facts. We're gonna focus on real research. We're gonna focus on primary sources. We're gonna focus on those kinds of things. All those things that have fallen by the wayside in the age of social media and in the age of very partisan popular media. Our media sources have really kind of become cheerleaders for the two parties in a lot of different ways, and so we're going to try to be different. We're going to try to actually present facts and data, and wherever it leads, and it doesn't matter if it leads to Republican policy. It doesn't matter if it leads to Democrat policy. The point is the truth is the truth. Facts are facts. And we need to get back to that kind of thinking in America. You know, that's really, that kind of thinking is really common sense. That's what common sense boiled down to is. We believe facts, we believe data, we believe truth. But for some reason, we've bastardized that phrase common sense and somehow made it into a partisan thing. Every MAGA person under the sun will tell you they're the side with common sense. But yet they reject facts, they reject data, and that's not common sense. That's idiocy. And so we're gonna confront those kinds of things. We're gonna confront those lies, those misstatements of facts, the spin that really both parties put on. But you know, this is not going to be a fair and balanced show either. So don't get it twisted. You need to understand right off the bat, we're not going to be fair and balanced in the way that people think about fair and balanced. We're going to be fair, but we're not going to be balanced because right now there's one party that's an existential threat to our democracy. That's an existential threat to our republic. That's an existential threat to individuals just trying to live their lives. And that party is the MAGA party, what was once known as the Republican Party. And so is the Democrat Party perfect? Not by a long shot. I have no love for the Democrat Party. I don't belong to the Democrat Party. I very rarely in my life voted Democrat. So if you you need to go into this knowing that I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a cheerleader for the Democrat Party. But what I am is someone who can see the threat because of my knowledge of history, because of my background, my education, the areas that I've studied my entire adult life, going on, well, I hate to say it, but 4 decades now. And because of those things, I understand what poses a threat to our country and to our democracy. And right now, that's the MAGA party. And so we are going to focus most of our firepower on MAGA. My main criticism of the Democrat Party right now is they're impotent. They're weak. They don't understand what's happening to them. They don't know how to fight. They didn't prepare for this. They were warned over and over and over again about what was coming, and they refused to believe it. They refused to prepare for it. And now they are reaping the rewards of that. And so my main criticism of the Democrat Party is the Democrat Party needs new leadership. The Democrat Party needs to get its head out of its backside and learn how to fight the fight. They need to learn how to resist. Right now, they don't know how to resist. They still think they can fight by the old gentlemanly rules of politics. And those rules are gone. And there is a new crop of Democrat leadership starting to rise to the fore that understands how true resistance works, that understands the fight that them and the country is really up against. And you know what? Those handful of young Democrats that understand this are getting most of the resistance that they're experiencing from their own party. They're getting more resistance from Democrats than they are Republicans. Their own leadership is fighting against them, undercutting them, doing everything that they can to keep that wing of the party from getting any power and being able to grow. And you know, I compare what's happening right now in the Democrat Party a lot to what happened with the Republican Party back in the 1990s, the early 2000s, with the rise of the Tea Party movement, where you had a bunch of out of touch, mushy Republican leaders who didn't want to listen to the grassroots, who thought they knew better, who acted like uh, they really didn't even like their own voters. And those voters noticed that and took offense to it. And so what happened with the Tea Party movement, yeah, eventually a lot of corporate dollars got dumped into that. But the Tea Party movement essentially in the beginning was very much a grassroots movement. It was a bottom up movement. It was a movement of people who were sick and tired of their Republican leadership, not listening to them, not fighting for them in the way that they thought they should. And don't get me wrong, I don't agree with what most of those people stood for and wanted their leadership to do. I'm just telling you what happened, what the history of the Tea Party movement is, and how it relates to what's happening right now in the Democrat Party. The Tea Party movement was started by a bunch of angry grassroots people, and they were able to get their representatives, congresspeople elected in a few places. Those congressmen, congresspeople were able to put a lot of pressure on their own party's leadership. Because majorities are so small now in the House and the Senate and have been for a long time, if you break off even a small section of one of the parties, they can have a huge amount of influence on party leadership. Because all you need to do is lose a few votes and you're sunk if you're the Democrat or Republican Party. So the Tea Party movement was able to pressure leadership because they had a handful of people. They had enough people in Congress to sway votes. And so they continue to put pressure on speakers of the House, on their own president, on their own leadership, until they eventually were able to either bend those people to their will or get them to step down, step aside, and be replaced by more radical Tea Party type people. That was kind of the beginning of the MAGA movement. Trump recognized what was going on with that. He's brilliant at marketing. He's brilliant at conning people. He's brilliant at weaseling his way into things. And so he saw what was happening with the Tea Party movement and understood people's dissatisfaction with their own leadership. Yeah, they were mad at the Democrat Party, but they were twice mad at their own leadership. And so Trump was able to learn how to speak their language because, again, he's a brilliant marketer, and he did it brilliantly. And all he had to do was speak their language. It didn't really matter what he did. It only mattered what he said. And so he was able to sway huge amounts of people to his side when he ran for president because he knew how to speak to them. Jeb Bush didn't know how to speak to those people. Are you kidding me? Jeb Bush was as out of touch as any politician I have ever seen in my lifetime. He was never going to win the Republican Party nomination. He was there at the wrong time. And so that was the kind of thing that was happening in the Republican Party at that time. You're starting to see seeds of that in the Democrat Party now, where you've got some of these, young, much more radical Democrat politicians like AOC. I forget his name, but like the young man running for mayor of New York City, who's a Democrat socialist and a Muslim and very outspoken about his radicalism. And those are the kinds of seeds you're starting to see now. They're getting a huge following. People are turning against Democrat leadership. They're turning against Schumer. They're turning against Pelosi. They're turning against all of these Democrats who have been there for so long and become so out of touch with the grassroots and have become so unable to fight the fight that they're losing popularity, they're losing support, and these young upstarts are gaining it. It won't be long, I think, because history repeats itself. If it's one thing you learn from studying history, it's that history repeats itself. Trump and MAGA is just a repetition of every other authoritarian fascist movement that's existed in the 20th and 21st centuries. There's nothing new under the sun with Trump. There's nothing new under the sun with MAGA. It's predictable. You can look at other movements like it in the 20th century, and you know exactly where it's going. That's why people like me, people like Heather Cox Richardson, people like all kinds of other historians, especially those who study authoritarian regimes, have been predicting exactly what was going to happen for the last several months. And every time we predict it, people are like, "Oh, you're crazy. You're being over the top. You're exaggerating," and then it happens, and it's going to continue to happen because it's predictable. History is predictable. Uh, History repeats itself. And you're seeing that now in the Democrat Party. History is starting to repeat itself with what's happening with the Democrat Party. It's very, very similar to what happened with the Republican Party 20 years ago. Pretty soon what's going to happen is these young radicals are going to take over the Democrat Party. They're going to push out the old guard. And then you're going to see a real conflict between the far left wing of the Republican or of the Democrat Party, and at least as much as it exists. Even far lefties in America are pretty moderate compared to leftists in most of the world. But what passes for far left in America, you're going to see that wing really, really clash with the far right wing of the Republican Party. And boy, I tell you what, you think that it's war now, you haven't seen anything yet. Just wait till you see what's coming. And it's going to happen because, again, that's the way the Democrat Party is moving. They're moving in a predictable pattern. It was the same pattern we saw with the Republican Party and the rise of the Tea Party, which led to the rise of MAGA. And same thing's going to happen with the Democrat Party. I just pray the Democrat Party doesn't have someone as evil, as slimy, as corrupt as Trump eventually come along to be their figurehead when this all comes to fruition. The only thing that I can hope for is that when this happens, because it will happen, that the Democrat Party finds someone honorable to follow. It's going to be someone who is tough as hell, who doesn't back down from a fight, who knows how to fight. And there aren't a lot of people who know how to do that who are honorable people. Just telling you the truth, especially when it comes to politics. Not a lot of people in politics who can do that, who are just honorable, good people. But we have to hope that that happens. And if you're a Democrat, this is coming. So when you're voting, look for those people who have honor, and don't just look for the people that follow all the same policies that you follow or speak the language you speak, but find people who have some honor in amongst that backbone as well. And so that would be my charge to the Democrat Party. This stuff is coming eventually. If we still have free and fair elections over the next few years, Democrats will be back in control, and they will want a measure of revenge, which is understandable. I do hope that if the Democrat Party gets a chance to come back into power, that they immediately do a few things. One of the things they need to do is they need to go and roll back all of these laws that they've created over the last several decades that allow presidents to declare emergencies for everything under the sun. These are not emergencies. What's happening in America for the last 50 years have not been emergencies. The ability of presidents to declare emergencies for every little thing is ridiculous. And Congress has given them that ability through all kinds of silly legislation that has done nothing but give their power away to potential authoritarians. For the most part, presidents have used these powers relatively responsibly, with certain exceptions, until Trump came along. But you had to know there was going to be a Trump at some point. You had to know when you're giving all this power that's supposed to be delegated to Congress away to a president, that eventually a president was going to abuse it. The fact that Congress either didn't recognize this or didn't care is ridiculous and is indicative of what a terrible job we've done as a country of electing our leaders. We need to elect leaders who understand the Constitution, who understand the separation of powers, who understand that there is no real enforcement mechanism in any of these laws that are supposed to limit a president. And so giving them emergency powers just adds to that. The Constitution, I tell you what, our founders, in a lot of ways, were brilliant individuals with a lot of foresight, but in some ways, they let us down. And one of those ways that they really let us down is they tried to limit the power of the government in the Constitution, but they provided almost no enforcement mechanisms. So what I mean by that is if a president decides, you know what, I'm not going to follow the Constitution here. And that's exactly what we have happening now. We've got a president who refuses to follow the Constitution. We've got a president who refuses to abide by court orders. There are some estimates that up to a third of all the court orders against Trump have been violated by Trump. He just ignores them. He doesn't care. And what is anyone going to do about it? Again, our founding fathers failed to put enforcement mechanisms in the Constitution. You got a president who doesn't want to follow it. What's anyone going to do about it? There's nothing in the Constitution to enforce any of these laws. And so you got a president who's just lawless. The founders, in their defense, never perceived of a president that would act like this. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, the founders viewed themselves and the leadership of this country as the elite of the elites. They were the educated ones. They were the ones who didn't need things like religion. They didn't need those kinds of guardrails for them to be moral people. They felt like because they were elite, educated, enlightened, that therefore they were moral. The rest of the hoi polloi, the rest of the country, they needed religion. That's what religion was for. That's why they endorsed religion so strongly. That's why they promoted it, because they thought religion promoted morality in people, and moral people were easier to control. But they themselves, the elites, for the most part, didn't feel like they needed religion because they were already moral, because they were enlightened. And that's who they thought would be elected presidents of the United States, people who were naturally moral because they were enlightened, because they were educated. They also never perceived of anyone other than wealthy white landowners ever being able to vote for president of the United States. The first few elections, that's who voted for president. And so they never perceived that, the hoi polloi, just the average Joe would be able to vote for president of the United States. And so they never perceived that kind of a person who came from that kind of background, a person who was supported by people who weren't the enlightened elite would ever become president. So they just never thought that they would need to put these enforcement mechanisms in the Constitution, and so they didn't. They're not there, and now we're paying for it. And on top of that, you got a Supreme Court who refuses to uphold the Constitution, who refuses to uphold precedent, who comes out and with a straight face says, hey, you know what? Our founders in the Constitution, they wanted a president to be able to commit crimes while in office and not be held responsible for it. The most asinine Supreme Court ruling that's come down the pike in decades. Of course, the founders never wanted a president of the United States that was immune from prosecution for crimes that he committed. That's ridiculous. But now we have carte blanche for our presidents, basically to commit crimes and get away with it. And so that's what Trump is doing. He's doing it left and right. He's bombing ships, boats in Venezuela and South America that he says are drug dealers. Who knows if they are or not? He doesn't know what's going on half the time. He follows what people tell him. He gets asked questions about, why did you pardon this person who's got all kinds of, uh, who's committed all kinds of horrible crimes, but has ties to you or your family, or will somehow benefit from this, or gave you money for your presidential campaign or your presidential library. Why did you pardon somebody like that? And his answer is, oh, people around me told me he was a good person and I should do it. He doesn't know what's going on. The dude is in at least the middle stages of dementia. Come on, let's just admit it. People did not want to admit it about Biden. The people around him, the people who supported him, it was ridiculous. We could all see what was going on with Biden. MAGA could see what was going on with Biden, but they can't see what's going on with Trump because they don't want to. The rest of us can see it. Trump is brain addled. Trump is not in his right mind. And he doesn't know what's going on half the time. So he's bombing these ships because people around him, the Stephen Millers of the world, tell him it's a good idea. And he's got no legal justification for it. It's unconstitutional. We're not at war with narco terrorists. There is no such thing. It's a ridiculous concept. Yes, we should be going after narcotics traffickers. Yes, they're bad people. No, we can't go around just blowing up boats without due process, without knowing who actually is on them. That makes us war criminals, plain and simple. So these are the kinds of things going on with Trump and with MAGA. These are the kinds of constitutional issues that we're facing right now as a country. And we need to own up to them. We need to face up to it. We need to be honest about our history. We need to be honest about our present. And too many of us don't want to do that because partisanship has blinded us. And I say this over and over again. Partisanship, especially hyper-partisanship, is a poison. It poisons your brain. It poisons your mind. It poisons your soul. And when you are hyper-partisan and you truly believe your side can do no wrong and the other side can do no right, and this is a huge problem with partisanship. It eventually leads people to believe they're on the side of good and right and everything that's proper, and the other side is on the side of evil. I pass by a sign every day now on my way home that says the Democratic Party is a Satan cult. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous stuff. People have lost their frickin' minds. And it's because of partisanship. Partisanship has caused all of this. And partisanship has caused us to separate into silos. It's caused us to separate into our own little media bubbles, our own little entertainment bubbles, our own little music bubbles, our own little friendship bubbles. Partisanship has caused us to become separated from truth, separated from reality. Uh, Democrats can be guilty of this too, but right now, MAGA is living in an alternate reality. I don't know what planet they're living on exactly, but they're on a planet where they cannot acknowledge basic facts. They're on a planet where whatever they believe today will be different tomorrow if it benefits them. I know I have a friend that I've had for a long time, a little bit older than me, a guy that I've looked up to for years and years and years. A guy who's helped me through a lot of things, given me a lot of good advice, but he started posting all kinds of absolute nonsense on social media that he absolutely knew were lies. And so one day I finally just called him out on it. And I said, why are you posting this stuff? You know it's not true. You know this stuff is crap. Why do you keep posting it? And his answer to me was, oh, it's not a lie if it hurts the other side. As long as it hurts the other side, it's not a lie. And that's the place that we've come to in our country right now, where we really believe this stuff. You can't talk people out of it once they've come to these kinds of conclusions. You just cannot logic and reason. You can't even morality them out of these kinds of ways of thinking. And so we need to be cognizant of hyperpartisanship and what it does to us. Now, being anti-MAGA does not make you a partisan. I again, do not agree with a lot of things the Democrat Party does. I don't vote for the Democrat Party. I'm not a Democrat. And there have been times in history, times over the last, couple of decades, I've been highly, highly critical of Democrats, far more critical of Democrats than I was Republicans. I go where the facts go. I go where the issues go. Once any party starts to become an existential threat to democracy and to our country and to the individuals that live in it, that's the party I will call out. And don't give me this crap about, oh, the other side does it too. You know what? If MAGA is a 10, the Democrats are a 2. And I'm not going to call out the 2s. I'm just not going to spend a lot of time doing that. That's ridiculous. I'm going to call out the 10s. I'm going to call out the 9s. I'm going to call out the people who are really doing the vast majority of the damage to our country right now. And right now, that's MAGA. So that's what this podcast is going to focus on. Over the coming weeks, I'm going to try my best to crank out one a week or so. And we'll probably just kind of focus on, hey, what's going on in the news this week, what's happened over the last few days, and we'll try to break it down. We'll try to make it as understandable as we possibly can. My background is teaching, so I'm going to try to, not be overly technical with things, especially as we launch into discussions of the Constitution. I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to speak in a lot of lawyerese. I just want to speak to people in ways that we can all understand and relate to, and because I'm just a guy myself. I'm not anything special by any means, and so we're just going to have some conversations. And again, we're going to talk about the things I want to talk about it because this is the Big Dog's Brain podcast, and so I'm going to talk about what's in my brain. But feel free to submit comments. Feel free to submit suggestions. If you have things that you want to talk about, feel free to submit them. If they interest me, I'll talk about them. If they don't, I won't. But it never hurts to ask, and never hurts to make requests. So I appreciate anyone who took the time to listen to this rambling today, my first attempt at a podcast. And hopefully it'll get better as it goes along. Hopefully it'll get more interesting, more informative, and hopefully you'll find it worthwhile to keep listening. So thank you very much. Take care. And remember, watch out for that hyperpartisanship. God bless.